Welcome, everyone. It's great to have Marisol Maloney today. And we were just chatting right before we went on. How did we actually first get together? How did we actually connect? Because that's such an important part about building relationships. And I think, Marisol, you alluded to a group that Bob McIntosh had put together, I guess, for a bunch of us and to see if we'd be interested in like speaking and connecting there. Was that correct?
Yes, yes. But I had been following you for a while, you and
Oh,
Bob. So I've always been a fan of your posts. You always put out a lot of useful information, and I appreciate that. I appreciate people like you that put out information constantly for job seekers. It's very helpful.
well, we do that. I mean, I do that speaking for myself. As a 45 and older, someone who had lost their job, I used to do it as a pay it forward thing now because so many people of our age and clients you work with the same thing, they're kind of struggling as to how to actually network and what the best practices are. And sometimes it's almost a not even knowing where to start. It's like being overwhelmed. And I really applaud your work with the military. And you were telling me right before that you actually served. So thank you for that. But I would love to know when you work with people in the military, they have wonderful skills, project management skills, communication skills, organizational skills. So, what are the things that you come across that you find that they need the most amount of help with? It's not so much maybe the skills per se, but what are the
Mm.
things you work with them on, in terms of getting to their next jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. Military services have amazing skills that are transferable into the community, into the civilian community. They just don't understand how to tease it out of their resume. So that's what I do. That's where I come in. I ask a lot of probing questions. What skills do you have? How does it relate to the new job? And the main thing that I've noticed when it comes to civilianizing the resumes, they
Mhm.
get too caught up on their rank and their former military titles and ratings and MOS and all that stuff. So, for example, a civilian won't know what a HM3 is. That's a petty officer third class in the medical community. You wouldn't know that. Or a 35 Foxtrot. That's, intel community in the Army or Air Force. There's so many variations of rates and ratings and titles. So it's best to just translate it and make it as simple as possible. As like, look at the job description, basically. Whatever
Right.
that title is on the job description. So I always use like program management as an easy example. If you're looking for a program management job, then somewhere in your resume, it should say program analyst, junior program analyst, program manager, program coordinator, senior program coordinator, something along the lines that matches that job description. And then you have to prove how you were a program manager or analyst. And the best way to do it is to look at the job description. The verbiage is right there, like literally, it's right there for the taking. It really is that easy. But people get caught up on listing their previous job duties. And
I'm
in the
I'm,
military, we have so many.
not laughing. Well, I'm working now with people that came from Google. They came from Microsoft. They came from Meta, and they used the terminology that made sense for them there. It's like buzzwords or acronyms in their industry, and we'll say diplomatically that's great for you if you're going to stay within the company, but you have to really explain what that means in a way that people understand. So I wanted to do some call outs. Bobby Atkinson, hey Maloney,
Hey, Bobby.
Bruce Thompson, happy to get to listen to you to learn the secret sauce. And I want to ask you actually how you came up with that. Marisol, how did you come up with the secret sauce as a brand or secret squirrel, I should say? I mean, secret sauce. I mean, yeah,
Well, I was a former naval intelligence officer. And
okay.
so in the intelligence community, they call everybody secret squirrels, or if you work for like the Secret Service, anybody that works with classified information, especially in the
Hmm.
intelligence community, they call you a secret squirrel. And so as a recruiter, I was recruiting, or I'm still recruiting secret squirrels, right? And
Okay.
so I started revamping people's resumes for free. I did it for a year
Hmm.
for free for military spouses, transitioning service members,
Hmm.
veterans, and they were landing jobs, landing interviews. So my veteran tribe encouraged me to start my own business, my own resume writing and transition coaching business. And so when I was thinking of a name, like Secret Squirrel, that's what I'm going to call it, Secret Squirrel Consulting. So that's
So,
how that came about.
so why do you think in the military they're so keen on their rank? as opposed to what their skills would be? Is it something that's kind of put into them as they're serving, like it's important to be a major or a colonel or something because it comes with it a uh, certain ability or certain expectation? Do you think, or is it just something that they have to get out of that mindset of the ranking and think about their skills and how they relate?
Yes, it's ingrained in us, basically, your rank, and the higher up in rank you go, the more responsibilities you have. But the problem with that is you get removed from the technical skills. So when I work with a lot of senior officers or senior enlisted getting out of the military, they struggle with that identity. Like, okay, who am I really? I've been leading people, but I don't have any technical skills. So there are some people that want to pivot maybe into IT or cyber, but
Mm-hmm.
they haven't really done it, but maybe they led and managed a team of IT personnel or cyber personnel. So that's the struggle. But yes, we do a lot of leadership. We can lead. I can lead any team.
Right, right,
I can lead any team. But can I do that thing that that team is doing? Now that's a different story. And a lot of us struggle with that when we transition. I was
mm-hmm.
fortunate. I had a lot of technical skills. I was actually a nurse, a Navy nurse for 10 years. I specialized in emergency nursing. And before that, I was enlisted. So I did aviation logistics. So I've had
Mm-hmm.
several jobs within the military, and also what's called collateral duties, where you wear many different hats. So when we get out of the military, we truly believe we can do any job. You'll ask any transitioning service members, what jobs are you looking for? And they will say, anything, I'll take any job. And they don't understand that in the civilian sector, there's no such thing as on the job training for the most part, for especially for the
Mm-hmm.
technical
Right.
roles. They want you to come ready to go. And a lot of transitioning service members struggle with that, or with like certifications that you must have. I work with a lot of medical paraprofessionals. In the Navy, they're called corpsmen. In the Army, I think they're called medics. And so in the Navy, the corpsmen will work under a nurse's license and a doctor's license. But once they get out and they want to continue careers in the medical field, they
Mm-hmm.
have to get their own certifications and licenses, like the MA, medical assistant certification, or LVN license, because now they're practicing under their own license. So if they don't have that,
And
they're
this
a
is a very
liability.
good comment. I mean, Christine says she thinks rank is like a degree or certification. Civilians don't know what it means, but it may be highly regarded among the military community. Um, what I'm wondering about also, I'm thinking about part of job search also is about, besides the resumes and LinkedIn, it's about interviewing. Do you think that people in the service have different interviewing challenges as opposed to someone who's used to interviewing? Is there a relationship between, let's say, a hiring manager and someone who's going to be interviewing in your space? Do you think, or is it just something that everyone seems to struggle with?
People struggle with civilian interviews. What military members forget is that we get interviewed all the time. If you're going up for ranking boards
Mm-hmm.
or special programs, awards programs. I know in the Navy we have, Sailor of the Quarter, Sailor of the Year. You have to sit in front of a board and you're being interviewed. So we do have interviewing skills. We know how to, do public speaking. We're
Mm-hmm.
trained in, especially if you're in leadership roles, the higher up you go in rank, the more public speaking you tend to do. The problem is that for some reason, when it comes to civilian job interviews, they forget to prepare. The same way you prepare for an awards board or a promotion board, you have to prepare for a civilian job interview. You can't just wing it. You have to practice, practice, practice. I've seen people bomb interviews all the time. And that's something that I just recently added to my, my services, is interview prep, because it is important. People just forget to just practice. The more you practice, the more comfortable you will be
Mm-hmm.
being interviewed. And there's so many things LinkedIn offers an interview prep. You
Sure.
just have to go to the jobs tab, click on interview prep, and it shows you all the common questions that interviewers ask. And the main one that you will always get asked is, tell me about yourself. In some state, shape, or form, you will have to tell them about yourself, and you have to keep your answers short and sweet. I promise a lot of high ranking officers and senior enlisted are so used to being long winded when they talk to their troops that they forget you got to get to the point. You got to give the bluff. In the intel community, the bluff is bottom line up front. Get to the point. Keep it to 30 to 90
I
seconds. And
I
if they
love
want to
that.
ask you more questions, they will ask you more questions.
I love that bluff. I had never actually heard that before. I think one of the questions I get, and I've had people in the service, I've looked at their profiles on their resumes, they question where to put that previous military history. and whatever certifications they have. So um, they have experience and it may be a break and they've gone back to work or vice versa. Do you recommend that they maybe have that military experience as a separate entity within their profile, or do you think it's okay to be blended in as, let's say, a job, if you will? I mean, and because I don't know what the answer is, honestly, because it's not really something I'm as familiar with, but I'd be curious to get your sense of that.
Yes, it depends. It depends
Okay.
how the gap it had. So I'll use an example, a recent example. I was working with a veteran who was also a military spouse. She had been out of the military for 10 years. Um, she got out, and then her husband was also active duty, so she was basically, following him around his duty
Right.
station the her time she got out, and she was struggling for 6 months to even get an interview or even a phone call from a recruiter, and she was actually getting ready to give up on her job search, and then I, offered to help her, and I said, let me see what's going on. She had listed her military experience, but it was not relevant to what she was trying to do. She
Mm-hmm.
was going for software engineer role, and she only had like probably a year and a half of experience, but her resume didn't tell a story of the skills that she brought as a software engineer. Instead, her summary section said something along the lines of Navy spouse, Navy veteran, passionate about IT, hardworking, detail, or it was just a bunch of fluff. It's not that people don't care that you're a veteran. Everybody loves veterans, for the
Mm-hmm.
most part. I don't know of too many people that hate veterans, but they also want you to bring the skill set. So what I did, I revamped her resume and basically wrote it as a new grad, and only really the first year or two of her resume was really valuable and that counted towards the job that
Mm-hmm.
she was seeking. And she had a lot of volunteer work on her resume, which we tell spouses to put that on there, but only if it's relevant. Like if you're the head of like the Girl Scout troops, that doesn't help you any. If you
Mm-hmm.
do volunteer work, like maybe you're maintaining your kids' school's Facebook page
Right.
or you created a website for them, that counts. Also, if you have like a GitHub account, any portfolios that you can put on your resume, put that on there. So that's exactly what we did. I took out the part that she was foreign military because it was not relevant and they weren't looking to hire veterans necessarily. And it just wasn't gonna get her seen. They wanted to see her skills. And shortly after, she was getting interviews every week and she finally landed something like 90 days later as an entry level software engineer, and it was just awesome to see that. So sometimes people get too caught up on their military experience and forget to ask themselves, is this relevant? Does it matter? For example, I was a form I did logistics and I was a nurse, but if I'm going to continue applying for like recruiter jobs or some
Mm-hmm.
or project management jobs, I'm not going to list my nursing experience on there or my logistics experience. I'm only going to pull out the stuff that's relevant to the new job I am seeking.
And I know LinkedIn is great because they offer a year premium for those who've served, and I think that's a very underutilized tool. I happen to love this conversation here. Um, the resumes are so full of fluff. We have to do better in teaching transitioning service members, veterans, military spouses how to write a resume that matters. And I couldn't agree more with that because it's all in what's in it for me as a future hire, as a future company. What is your past experience going to do to help me with whatever my problems are? And I think
Yeah,
it's a little bit of a tweak from what a lot of people are told when they do this, but it's really more about you're going to make yourself marketable.
exactly. Yes, get to the point. Give them the bluff. Tell them, why you're amazing. Start with a impactful summary section. A lot of people fail to really sell themselves in the summary section. I get a lot of resumes and they just start, they just go straight into the job experience. But the way I treat summaries is I treat them as a mini cover letter because some jobs don't require a cover letter. So that's your chance to really sell yourself. Give a quick paragraph, 4 lines of what you offer, what you've done. Come in with a bang. So make that recruiter want to read the rest of your resume. I know there's a lot of chat about, oh, should it be 1, 2, 3 pages? And it goes back to it depends. It depends
Exactly.
on your years of experience, relevant experience, and industry. Uh, if you're applying for tech roles, a lot of the tech recruiters are getting swamped with resumes, getting 300, 400 plus resumes for just one job requisition. So yeah, they are scanning your stuff quickly. So you want to slow them down and capture their attention like the
Mhm.
first half of your resume. Get them like
Yeah.
get them to stop and read the rest.
The other thing is we tell people to have a bullet point, a list of skills or something on the first page too, because it's easy to read. And LinkedIn makes it so easy because if you had the skills on your LinkedIn profile, just take them from there and use that as a mechanism, as a springboard. Um, and I think a lot of it's just not people not realizing that it's about selling yourself when you do a resume. I mean, no one. I mean, again, there's no one right or wrong way to do a have a resume. There's different types of schools of thoughts, but if you're not marketing yourself, if you're not putting your best foot forward, and even resumes now, I still see the same mistakes being made again and again. Um, I'm still seeing the references upon request, which absolutely kills me.
Yeah.
I'm seeing I'm seeing street addresses still, which absolutely kill me. Yeah, and I'm seeing email addresses, and I'd be curious to know your thoughts about what do you think about someone that uses an old email address as the contact, the Yahoo.com or the AOL.com, and they're trying to get into IT or some new industry. I mean, I know what my perception is of that. What do you think?
I personally don't care what email you use because I'm
Okay.
looking at, do you meet the requirements? Do you
Okay.
have what it takes to do the job? That's what I'm looking for. But there are some recruiters and hiring managers that might raise that eyebrow, like, are you serious? You're still using AOL or Yahoo. So I always recommend people create a professional email with one of the updated providers like Gmail. Outlook is fine. I think there's another one like Proton. I forget. There's so many out there that you can use that
Hmm.
are newer, and use that email specifically for your job search. Like, don't give it to your friends. Don't, sign up for special offers so you don't get all that spam. Use it specifically for your job search. So when you get emails from those companies that you've applied for, you'll know that it's coming from a company. And also check your spam folder. For
Hmm.
some reason, some emails will go to candidate spam folder. So they'll say, "Oh, no one ever contacted me," when really they did. You just never checked your spam folder. So it's important to check your inbox and your spam if you're actively seeking. So check it every day, at least once a day.
And this is a wonderful thing to keep in mind. Interviews are, it's about a conversation. It's about having a conversation with someone. And I think there's a mindset, and I agree, like you're going in to be into an inquisition, and you're not. So you really have to look. I mean, you have to do your research. You have to make sure that you can answer the questions correctly. But it's two people talking. Although usually that's the case. Now with video, it's a little bit different, and I wonder if that's a different challenge that people in the military are up against now. It's I don't know if you do a lot of video interviewing or if that happens in the military or not, but it's a whole different mindset and a whole different things to consider.
I do my interviews over the phone with
Okay,
clients. So I do phone interviews, but it shouldn't really matter if it's on the phone, via Zoom, on site.
right.
As long as you prepare and you practice, practice, practice. When I was a job seeker, when I was transitioning out of the military, I was practicing out loud. I was practicing in traffic in my car, talking out loud. I was recording myself, and I hated the way I sounded. And I would just, keep recording yourself. Write out the questions that they could potentially ask you, and write out the answers and practice those answers out loud. So that way you're prepared whether they ask you on site, face to face interviews, or on the phone, or Zoom, or one way interviews. Just practice answering
Mhm.
questions. And the more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you will feel.
And I don't know if Maryland actually. There's a person, I believe this Margaret O'Donnell comes in New Jersey. I don't know if you're familiar with her or not. I've heard she does a lot of positive things. You know, and if you want, Meryl, if you want to put a quick follow up in the chat, I've heard about Margaret O'Donnell. I don't know if she's on this call or not, but any additional things you can do would be great because um, I know that there's different struggles that different industries and different people have. I think one of the challenges that I think a lot of people in the military also have is they're constantly moving from place to place. They're not all necessarily in one place, and that again, in terms of building relationships and networking, that can be a little bit more difficult to do that. At least, again, that's my sense. I'm not in the military, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. But would you see that? Do you think they have some issues with networking or other things besides that, or do you think they're okay when they're having all these conversations amongst themselves?
I think military members forget that we network in the military. We
Okay.
network, we have brothers and sisters actively serving around the world, and we can, reach out to them for mentorship. But for some reason, when we get out, we just like forget, like, oh, we don't have a network. No, you've had a network all along. You just never leveraged it. You never really consciously leveraged it. And people forget that we network every day, whether it's active or passive networking. You network when you drop off your kids at school, talking to that teacher. Maybe their spouse works for a company that you're interested in. Ladies, when we go get our nails done, you might be talking to the lady next to you or the gentleman next to you getting a pedicure, and
Right.
we strike up casual conversations. We are natural networkers, and we forget. We feel some people think that networking means going to an actual event, but you don't have to go to special events to network. You can passively network every day. So you have a network, you just haven't leveraged it. If you've been to a birthday party, you've been to a networking event. If
Yep.
you've
Yep.
been to a military ball, you've been to a networking event. So we network all the time. We just don't see it that way. We're just, I guess, indoctrinated that you have to physically go to this big convention hall to network, when really some people are
Right.
wallflowers in those areas. So we
Right.
network every day.
One of the things I really, there's that feeling of dread when you go to a high school reunion after many, many years. But I think it's a great place to network because you have that thing in common.
Mhm.
That was one of the first real networking events I went to. We had a high school reunion, and it was during 2008 when the financial crisis hit, and so many people were looking for jobs, and it was we all kind of knew each other, and then it became, well, I know this person, I know that person. So I think one of the challenges is to go to people or go to places you may normally dread, but you got to get out of your comfort zone. One of the hardest things to do.
Exactly. Military spouses, we network all the time with each other. It's actually like as I was transitioning to the military, I was hanging out with the military spouses, and one of them was hiring manager. And she, like, by the end of the night, after I had just met her that day, we chat up, and she was already like offering me a job. I'm like, oh, I wasn't looking right now, but thanks. Like, that's how things happen. You just talk to people and you just network. Just be yourself. And if you're actively seeking a job, let people know.
Absolutely.
I think people are afraid to say, "Hey, I'm actively looking." And it reminds me of like when I was young, my father was laid off, and he just felt the shame, so he didn't tell anybody he had been laid off. And if I could go back in time and tell my dad, "Hey, dad, it's okay. Let your friends know, let the church
Right.
know, let your former coworkers know that you're actively looking," I think he would have found the job that much quicker. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, that they feel shame, like it's their fault, they did something wrong. It's just life. Life happens to everybody. Don't be ashamed. Same thing with the open to work banner. Use it. It's a bat signal to the recruiters.
Mhm.
And if you don't want everybody and their mom to know, then you can also go into your settings and select so that only recruiters can see that, the ones that are using LinkedIn Recruiter to find you. So there's still ways for recruiters to find you if you want. If you want that.
It's also important, we talk about this a lot. When you talk to people, you have to make sure they understand what you're looking for and not talk in the language of your industry. Because if you're in IT people know what IT people do. But non-IT people, if you're going to call yourself a problem solver, be very general and mention maybe some companies, that's more helpful to them than running out a litany of all the words that you know that you may not need anymore.
Yes, every industry community has their own language. I mean, when I was a nurse, I had my own language, and then I switched over to the intelligence community. I had to learn a whole different language, and then becoming a civilian, you just have to educate yourself. Really, that's what it comes down to, and doing your own research and asking questions. Find a mentor, get a coach, whatever you have to do. Use Uncle Google. Uncle Google is amazing.
Uncle Google, where Uncle Google, huh?
Start there. Before I used to be Ask Jeeves. Do you remember that?
I do remember Ask Jeeves, yes. Just to let everyone know, Meryl put in the chat a little more information about Margaret O'Donnell. And so when you look back later on, you'll have that. I've never had the honor of meeting her, but I've heard great things about her. And I wonder if other universities or other places have something similar to that possibly set up. Like if you're in California, I would think that there are similar arrangements there. I don't think this is just a New Jersey thing. Um, is that true? Do you think, or not?
As far as
As
which
far
part?
as the fact that you have over here, are there are there veterans associations or veterans groups, whether it's on LinkedIn or somewhere else that people can connect with? I mean, how do veterans stay in touch? I mean, after they've served.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of groups. There's a lot of groups on LinkedIn,
Okay.
Facebook. I don't really use Facebook. LinkedIn is like the main social media I use,
Hmm.
but there are a lot of Facebook groups and there's a lot of groups in LinkedIn. There's the military to civilian transition, there's DOD cleared candidates, there's top secret clear. There's so many messages. Got to do your search. So, Auntie LinkedIn is also a good one to research. Get on that, search engine and start typing in words like keywords like veteran groups, military spouse groups. There's so many out there. It, yeah, so many organizations that want to help you. Vets to Industry, Onward to Opportunity. Onward to Opportunity was a great program. They paid for my project management certification. They paid for my training and my certification. It's like a $500 exam. They also will pay for the certification for military spouses.
Hmm.
There's Vets in Tech. There's Act Now. Oh, there's so many resources. Like I can't even keep up with all the resources that are out there, but there's so much out there for veterans and spouses.
And I would almost say right off the bat, if you're ask a question like that on LinkedIn, like I just asked Marisol, and you'll get a lot of great information there. And this is just true of anyone who's in job search.
Mhm.
Don't be afraid, not just to say you're looking for a job, but don't be afraid to ask for help. What is the worst thing that's going to happen? No one's going to respond to you. You got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. I think a lot of posts I see are very vanilla-ish, and so you want to just set yourself apart in some way.
Exactly. And if you ask for help, the veteran community will come to your rescue. I have yet to see a veteran that posts something and no one offered any help. Now, there's also a way to there's a right way and a wrong way to come at people too. If you're constantly complaining about the job process and recruiters suck and hey, I fought for your freedom of speech. So don't get it twisted. You can say whatever you want, but it does come with consequences. Nobody wants to work with a negative Nelly. So if you're constantly putting bad stuff out there, and usually when I see these posts, I'll go to the profile, see what's going on. They have a crappy profile. Sometimes they have a crappy profile picture, no substance that makes me as a recruiter want to recruit them. And on top of that, you have a bad attitude. Good luck getting recruiters to contact you. So change your attitude, clean up your social media. If you have a lot of negativity
Hmm.
on there, scrub it, scrub it, and change your attitude.
Now another, I think Angie's mentioned, is it Veterati?
Veterati, yes. I'm also a Veterati mentor. So that's where you can connect, and it's a free resource. You can connect with other people to, pick their brains basically. So like
Mhm.
if you wanted me to mentor you on your resume or the job search or Intel stuff, you can reach out to me there if I have slots. I need to release some slots though. I just tend to book quickly sometimes. I haven't released any new ones in a while, but you can reach out to as many mentors as you want for different industries. Maybe you want to dabble in cybersecurity, so you can reach out to a cybersecurity mentor. Or maybe you're thinking about doing project management. You can reach out. You can reach out to as many mentors as you want, and it's free. You get an hour of their time each time.
And I think you bring up a good point. People don't know where to look sometimes.
Mhm.
And that's why the great first step is to just ask about where these places are, because we all know certain things. And you have, as you would say, is it anti LinkedIn, you said, or Aunt LinkedIn? Aunt LinkedIn
And
is such a great
anti-LinkedIn.
resource.
Yes, I tend to use a lot of humor. I feel like it makes people remember things better if when you use humor. That's why like my posts tend to be snarky and sarcastic at times, and I try to use funny gifs because I think a lot of people tend to be too preachy on social media as well.
Yeah,
Like, don't do this, don't do that. It's almost as if they're chastising job seekers. And what people tend to forget, it's like sometimes they're brand new job seekers again. Maybe they had a job, the same job for 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden, they got laid off or the job went away or whatever life happens. And
right.
so now they're lost. They don't know how to do a proper job search. So instead of chastising, job seekers, just give how to's. Instead of saying giving a lot of don't, give them more do's, like how-to guides.
So the question came up, any groups, for any groups other than veterans, and there's lots of groups out there for job seekers, and there's lots of groups in general. I think you want to, when you look for a group, want to find a group that's specific or relevant to your industry. Um, you may want to do one that's local, because there's a lot of groups on LinkedIn are local, and there is also places that have events. But it's really networking per se is a combination of things. It's not just joining groups on LinkedIn. It's not just engaging. It's about putting yourself out there. It's about making sure. Now, is that Federati only for veterans? I'm just looking at the question here, or is it open to anyone?
I believe it's just for veterans. They might have for, I mean, if a military spouse reaches out to me, I'm not gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna mentor you. You just have to go to the website, create an account, and it'll ask you a bunch of questions. Are you a military spouse, veteran? I think spouses can also um, get a mentor there.
They may need some number, some ID or something. I know that, to prove that you're a member of the military, I guess. I don't really know. I mean, I'm just
For some organizations, you do. They'll ask you to go log in on ID Me
right.
and prove that you're somehow related to the military, whether you're a spouse or a transitioning service member or veteran. Yeah, some will do that. Others just have you fill out a simple, tell me about yourself form, and they'll
Mhm.
they'll let you in the group. So it just depends. But there's so many resources out there. Hire Our Heroes is another one. Hire Heroes USA,
So here, the Veterati is
ACP.
open to anyone to be a mentor. Mentees are only the veterans, transition service members, and military spouses. So if anyone on this,
Thanks, Bruce.
yeah, I mean, that's what's so great about some of these is we're asking a question, and the group responds, because I know
Yeah.
that, um, mentors are needed in general, in all different places. And if you're even in job search, you're still a mentor. You haven't
Hmm.
lost your skills. You have the ability to kind of share with other people, and you never know where that's going to go. I think that's one of the things that I try to position as much as possible.
Hmm.
You don't lose your skills when you lose your job. You may lose the place that you're working at. You may lose a paycheck for a little while, but it does not change what you're able to do.
Exactly. I agree with that.
And I love the idea that I do some funny posts too once in a while. I have to, because it just gets it out of my system. I think that we've kind of loosened up a little bit on LinkedIn ever since the pandemic, and we've allowed certain comments to be a little bit more relaxing about things. And um, I think that's so important, because we're not just LinkedIn profiles. We're not just people here. We're human, and we deal with things. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, it is. And it shows that you're human. And I think people are more willing to build that relationship with you and connect with you than if you're just a robot. Like when they finally rolled out the laugh emoji, I was like all about it. I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna use this sucker like at least once a day, once a week. Because I like to laugh. What's wrong with laughing? Show your sense of humor. It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people appreciate that. And I think we have the ability now, especially with emojis and other things, to really share our humor in a different way. You don't have to just do like the the colon with the parentheses that we used to do for the smile or the whatever. You know,
Exactly.
I know that's dating me a little bit now, but there was a time when that was all we had, is all those symbols that we'd create.
Yeah, I mean, emojis are fun. I like using them. They crack me up.
Which brings me to a different question that I just got today. How do you feel about graphics on a resume? Because I actually had a resume today where someone actually graphically showed what their accomplishments were. And I kind of was like, I had mixed feelings about it, honestly. But I'd be curious to know what you think about that.
It depends. Are you applying for like a graphic design
Right.
job where they need to see those skills? Then sure, go for it. But if you're applying to regular jobs online, especially for the transition military, you're going to like cybersecurity, project management, whatever. Um, this pesky ATS may not parse that information properly. Okay, so and by parse I mean pulling out the like out of the blocks, like your information, like your name, making
Hmm.
sure it goes into the right block onto the
Right.
application. It's pulling stuff from your resume onto the application. And with all this AI stuff, it's still not perfect. Computers are still kind of dumb.
Well, AI is a good tool to help in advance. Like if you want to know how to ask or get an answer to a resume question, you can get some very generic, helpful information there as a starting point. Like it's the old "tell me about yourself."
Yes.
We all have to do. Um, or, I mean, I actually did a funny post once about what are the worst interview questions you've ever had to answer, just to kind of see what it would be. And it was the old one. It was like if could come back as an animal, what would it be? Sort of thing. And it's like, what are you trying to measure with that?
Yeah, it's a little bunch of buffoonery out there. But ATS, applicant tracking
Yes,
system,
ATS.
it's basically a digital, it's a database, it's a dashboard. So when someone applies to a role, I get an alert on my email saying, "Oh, Ken just applied to your Intel analyst role in DC." I'm like, okay. So I go check out this Ken guy, click on the link. It shows me the resume, it shows me the application. And then I can see if you're qualified for the role. If you're not qualified, I will send you a rejection email. If you are qualified, I will send you an email or call you or text you, all of the above, and ask, for a time to chat with you and learn more about you
Well,
and your skills.
so the
That's it.
ATS,
I'm the bot.
the ATS, just to quantify, it's an automated tracking system. It's a way when you send a resume up, and there's all different ones out there, whether
Mhm.
it's Taleo or iSIMS or something like that. Your resume is taken and it's put into different buckets, and based on how you fill it out, it'll determine based on keywords where you rank possibly or how you fit in, whether and some ATSs they may be programmed to take the top 5-10% of resumes. They may take resumes from a certain part of the country, but it's the first line of defense. Now you mentioned when do you work with some type of an ATS where you are like if someone's applying for a job to you, like is it going to a place where it can be separated out, or do you just go through all your resumes and just
Nope, I get them all. You can set up. So when I first started recruiting for Fiber, the ATS was set up to give a grade, to assign a grade based on, yeah, keywords, but I was still reading the resume. So
right,
again, because it's not a perfect system, it would grade like ABC. And so it would
uh,
assign a grade of an A to a resume. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh, okay, no, they don't meet the requirements. Why is this an A? So I would have to reject those, or it would assign the grade of a C to a candidate that no, they're perfect, and get them a job offer later on. So because I found them distracting, I was still reading all the resumes anyway. I just turned off that feature. So that feature is set by a human. And again, every ATS is different. So I'm just explaining how
right.
I use the
Well,
ATS for my
as an
company.
example, if you get rejected from an ATS, you don't
Hmm.
not apply for the job. You still look for the company. You look for someone on LinkedIn because in that case, they still haven't seen your resume. You know, and you don't know what they're looking for, and sometimes they don't totally know. And maybe they're happy with 75% of the skills. I think the mistake a lot of people make, and just to quantify this, it's a system that helps hiring managers find likely qualified candidates, which is probably as clean as I can think of. But the definition of a qualified candidate is based on what they put in, what they determine, or this what they determine should be within the system. So you may not be qualified, but you have to still follow up, and that's not what networking is. If you get a rejection 30 minutes after applying for a job, and it's a job you could do, follow up. Now, there's a lot of people that put things in their resumes just to get past the ATS. That does no good at all
They need to
because
get
they
past
can't.
me.
Well,
They
same
can put
thing.
all the invisible keywords they want, but I'm still reading that resume. And if you don't meet the requirements, or at least don't show how you meet the requirements, that's the problem. Some people may have the qualifications, but they didn't prove it on the resume. I'm
Right,
not a mind reader. This is why you have to look at the job description, look at the requirements. If it says must have project management certification and you have it and you fail to put that on your resume, that's on you as the job seeker. You need to pay attention to the job description and not use the same exact resume to apply to 500 jobs. If you're applying to 500 jobs with the same exact resume, you're going to get the same result. You're going to get probably
right.
zero calls.
And that's why, like, if you look at the job specs, take some of those and make those skills. put that in the skills section
Yeah.
and just swap it out if need be. I mean, it's and that way, and then you can quantify it further later on. But that's part of job search, is doing some homework that way. I mean, obviously, you want to ask other people for help and advice and support, but the game is played this way, unfortunately.
Yeah, and if you get an automatic rejection once you've applied, it's probably because you answered what we call knockout questions
Yeah.
unfavorably. So if one of the questions, like for me, I look for top secret cleared personnel for the most part. So the way it was set up, it would one of the knockout questions would be, do you have an active top secret clearance? Yes or no. If you answered no, you will get an automatic rejection. But your resume still stays in our database, so it doesn't mean that you may not be qualified for other jobs later on that don't require a top secret clearance. So what I did, I took that off as well. So that's why I get everything. I get the unqualified, I see all the resumes. So it's a feature that recruiters or the hiring manager can set up on their ATS. So all your resumes do get seen by the human eye um, eventually, because like I said, I'll get like maybe 100 resumes for one job. So I have to filter through all of them, and going down the list, and the majority of them are not qualified candidates, unfortunately.
All right.
They don't, it's like they don't meet the
Observation.
go
You
ahead.
don't have to have only a two-page resume. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I've made two-page resumes one page. I've made some two-page resumes 3 pages. It depends. Now, there's no one right or wrong. What I would recommend is, if you've been working your whole life, you don't want to list to the same background what you did 20 years ago. You want to acknowledge it, but then you could have a 7 or 8 or 9 page resume. But
Yeah,
everything
keep it
that
relevant
yeah,
to the
everything is
last
it
10
depends.
years.
It depends on probably one of the two most important words in job search or networking. There is no one right or wrong answer.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I've read 5-page resumes. I had one person submit a 16-page resume, but it's because they submitted a federal resume, which is a lot longer than a corporate resume. So people need to understand the difference between a corporate and a federal. The federal, you list everything you've ever done. Corporate, you need to get to the point, use bullet form, stick to like the last 10 to maybe
Right,
15 years, depending on the seniority of the role. But if the job says, must have 10 years experience, then just go back 10 years. You don't have to do 20, 30 years of experience. Just go back 10 years, and that'll help you shorten your resume.
right. I've seen. I'm working with people now that have list of published works. They have a list of patents in some cases. That's all relevant. Now, I'm not going to make the call to take it off. I might suggest it be a separate attachment if you're going to apply online, in addition, instead of a cover letter or something like that. But there's different types of resumes and different things. But Marisol, I want to thank you so much for the conversation today. I really, really do. Getting up at 3 hours earlier on the West Coast. It's
No worries, no worries. This is fun. I'm very passionate about this. So
I
sometimes
got
I get excited and I talk really fast, but that's because I really want to help job seekers understand how to tailor resume, what that means, what that looks like. And
mhm,
for my military family, learn how to translate your skills, civilianize it. Don't use acronyms, spell out the acronym, and just use the verbiage that's on the
right,
job description. Like it literally tells you what to put on your resume.
right. And you'll accept connection requests from people?
It depends. Are they
Okay.
bots? Are they
No.
from like
Well, no,
another, are they creepy men trying to hit on me? It depends. It depends how they come at me. If they write a lovely note and they're respectful, yes. But if
sure.
their profile seems kind of sketchy, I won't accept.
No,
And
that's
then and I get annoyed when I accept someone's connection request and they try to pitch slap me right away. I don't like that. Don't do that.
that's a whole different discussion. We all get pitch slap. We all get these weird, and blocking and reporting, for what it's worth, does very little good, which we
I
all
know.
know. I know, which is like, what's going on with this? What's wrong with this picture? But that's unfortunately a whole different conversation. But I want to thank you again, Marisol. Definitely have to chat it. Oh, very good. Final thought, Bruce. Thank you for sharing your secret squirrel sauce with us.
You're very welcome, Bruce. Actually, Bruce, we should hop on a call soon.
Absolutely. That sounds great. So hopefully you guys can connect offline. So
Yeah.
have a great day, everyone. Look forward to seeing you again real soon. If you're watching the recording, great too. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon. And I don't know, what's the weather like by you? We're really cold here in New Jersey today.
It's sunny right now, but it was cold yesterday.
Yeah, what's your cold? What's your
It was
definition
it was 54 degrees.
Okay.
I actually had to wear a hoodie
All
yesterday.
right.
It was
Well,
pretty cold.
that's going to be about our high today, but we had 90 degrees last week, so it's just kind of a walk, what's wrong with this picture weather? All right, have a great day. Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Take care. Yep.